It's a new episode of Bonafide Her Podcast, episode 5, featuring Courtney Harden. Pew, 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 pew.
What up, Ashley? Thank you
What's
for the invite. I am excited to be here with you.
Oh, of course. You're always welcome. You're always welcome I enjoyed, your podcast as well. So, always got to make sure to, give credit where it's due. So, always. So,
Yes. I'm blessed. I'm excited. All those things. I am like I'm a fan of yours, just in general. Just we've done so much collaboration. So I'm glad to be on your new podcast, the Bonafide Her Podcast, which is a great. It's doing so well. It's doing great, and you've already had great guests. So I'm just glad to be a part of it.
of course. And you are the first male guest. So I'm super excited and, hoping to have more male guests that are advocates of women in sports because there are so many, but it doesn't get talked about enough. So let's get to it. CJ, can you tell me how your story came from where you started to where you are right now?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It was interesting enough when growing up, watching sports, playing basketball, just play, football with my friends and baseball and all those things. Got in love with sports from that aspect, and then started really getting into it when I was about, I would say, like 8, 9 years old. Started watching, football, understanding rules and things like that, developing my favorite teams, favorite players, and all that. So that part was, playing and then watching it and then find out who your favorite athletes are and things like that. So as I got a little older and, going through high school, junior high school and high school, I started getting into like the statistics of it, like the scouter reports and that insider things of, you know, collecting cards like basketball cards, baseball cards, reading stats and all that. So
Oh,
that's
the
how I
trading cards.
trading cards, yeah, basketball cards, baseball cards. I collected a lot of them, and looking at the back of the cards and uh, reading the stats and all that. So I got fascinated by that. Newspapers, ripping out the stats of the newspaper from the school library. Wasn't supposed to do that, but I was
Oh no.
doing that. I was doing that, and I would study that stuff, and it was just fascinating to me, the numbers and things like that. So I nerded out with that and just loved it from there, debating with my friends. And people will always say, you should have like a radio show. You're gonna be on radio. This is in like junior high school, because you know so much statistics and all those things. And I loved it. I loved it from there. But I go to college, still love sports and everything too. But you get to college, you don't really know what you really want to do. And I knew that should have been my path when I was younger, just to get into sports broadcasting and things like that. But you're young and you just start doing all types of other things. You're just trying to find something. But I always still love sports, still watching it and all that. And then when podcasting came around, I would say around about 2014, 2015. That's when I got really back into it, and I started a podcast on a network. I was writing, got back into that. I used to do writing, and I got back into it, writing blogs and things like that around about 2015. And then I did a podcast. I did a podcast with a couple of hosts on there, and we did that for a couple years, and then I did it by myself. Was doing so much podcasting at that time. And then about 2018, I stopped podcasting because I got burnt out. I was doing a lot of, getting guests, doing almost every day, on top of working a full-time job, top of being a husband, top of doing that, to do all those things. And I was like, okay, it's not enough time. So let me sit back and loving sports. Let me just watch sports, instead of just still podcasting. But then I missed it after I took that year off. And then 2019, I launched The Real Deal with Courtney Harden in 2019. Yeah, 2019, I launched that, 2018, 2019. And then ever since, I've been just doing it now, but I take time off and I come back and all that because I don't want to get burnt out. So here I am now, since 2018, 2019. I started it, and I'm on the BS3 network. Shout out to Ben.
Hey.
Shout out to Ben Sutters. He came in asked me to be a part of his network. And do I want to get back into podcasting? So I got to give him a lot of credit, give my wife a lot of credit, because she pushed me and she keeps pushing me to continue to be, this is what I want to do. So this has been my passion for years. So here's where we are in 2023.
Hey, she's a real one for continuing to push you to do
She
what you
is.
love to do.
Mm-hmm. She is. She's a real one. She's the one. She's my manager. She says that. She's I'm your manager. I'm pushing you, but she does. She has pushed me to continue to do it, continue to reach out and try to get even more opportunities and things like that. So she's been the one in my corner since day one. So I got to give her all the credit for just continue to keep motivating me and pushing me when I didn't want to do it anymore. But she knows how much of a passion I have for this and just interviewing and things like that. So it's So that's the story. That's the short version of the story.
It's all good. So I didn't realize podcasting has been out for so long. I just thought podcasting just kind of start getting popular since the quarantine because of everybody was staying in and wanting to talk and stuff. But can you describe what the process was like for you when you started get the real deal, and how have you like seen, so much things happening? Like now you're getting to, interview people like WNBA players and asking them questions.
Oh man, from when I started, like I just remember podcasting, like I said, back then. It was even before then podcasting it had started. I'm thinking it started like 2010, 2011, maybe, when podcasting actually started. And it wasn't as big as it is now because there's so many different podcasts now, but the growth of podcasting from 2010 2011 to what it is today, there's so much reach now. I mean, social media was different even back then. I mean, back then you didn't have much. You had Facebook maybe had started at the time, and MySpace, and that you had that. Then it was Facebook, then it was Twitter and Instagram. Now you got TikTok, you got all these other different ways. So that's a difference now.
Oh yeah.
So many people are on social media, and there's so many avenues of different social media platforms. So I think that's different. But with my podcast, The Real Deal, I formatted a couple of times, and I've always interviewed, but now that it's got a lot, some traction, as you said. I'm doing some WNBA coverage and interviewing WNBA players and just getting the guests who I want to hear their stories. I just like to hear people's story. That's what I'm trying to get with the podcast. It's just like I want to get people that has a story. Everybody has a story, and
Yes.
they're able to share that story. Or if you have a book to promote, I'm all for that. I want to hear that. I like to hear, just like I said, I like to just have a conversation with my guest and everything. So now, as I said, with the reach now has grown since 2014, 2015 to what it is to today. That's where I see podcasting has been. I think the reach is more. The reach is more because there's so many more people that are doing so much good things. And whether it's sports, whether it's business, whether it's whatever you do, cooking, I just love to hear the stories.
That's true because when it comes to podcasting, there's so many like in the categories. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that women in sports, like just having their stories be told, get more popular, more like in depth as well as heard, because there's not a lot of podcasts that talks about women in sports unless you're like in the professional of sports. So
Yeah, that's a good point because I think with women in sports and the growth, I mean, we've talked about this ever since we've connected and over the last year, and we always discussed about how women in sports can keep growing and where it is today, and podcasting is a part of that. There's so many great podcasts that elevates women in sports, talks about women in sports. And like we said before, if you invest in the women in sports, and you will get people to watch, people to listen, people to do all those things. And I think it's great when you have that podcast platforms to be able to elevate women in sports and advocate for it and continue to push it to where it needs to be, where it's going, I really believe that a lot of podcasts are doing that.
Oh yeah, because as you've been a huge advocate of women in sports, and
Mhm.
having numerous sports journalists just tell their stories, and provide the insights of what their strong suit is, whether it's NFL, fantasy football. it's
Mhm.
it's just amazing to see like women continue to break barriers just every day with just like a male dominant sport. So
Yeah, and that's true. They are breaking a lot of barriers, and like I said, I've had a lot of sports journalists. I've had broadcasters. He says I've done some WNBA. So I've always enjoyed shouting out, women in sports and women in business, because there's so many talented women who are not getting, they're just do what they should be getting, and like I said, I want to give a platform of that, and just to be able to let them share what they're doing, and there's such a tremendous job they're doing, and the grind they're on, and they're out there reporting, they're out there telling the news, telling those stories, and even for themselves, not even just for the athletes, for themselves, their journalistic background, like I love to hear that their stories, because there's so many different ones. How they got into journalism, how they got to where they are today. I'd like to hear those things, and I'm trying to be an at least a part of that, an advocate, to give them a platform to share what they enjoy to do, because I've had some that for the first time ever been on a podcast. I'm finding a lot of talented just people in general. Like I find golfers, people that are starting golf. I just had a person on a guest on the show last week. She said, I'd never been on a podcast, and yes, I want to conversate. I said, yeah, let's talk about your journey into golf. What is that, what it looks like, and why you're doing this, and what are you doing this for? Content creators, so she was excited that I reached out. She said, I've never done it. I said, hey, let's talk about your stories. Let's just talk about your stories, conversating, and it's not an interview style. I don't call it an interview. I call it like this is a conversation.
yes.
Yeah. So I like to hear that side of the story, and that content creator, or she's like, this was fun. I would like to do it again, and I love to hear that.
Oh yeah, because for me, and you know this, I always want to give a platform for each woman in sport and female
Mhm.
athletes to share their, stories. Because when you hear stories, especially if they're female athletes, you probably hear like, oh, they're from UConn, or they're from Tennessee, or
Right. Mhm.
something traumatic happened. They're coming back from. I mean, no shade to any of them at all, because hey, it's I guess it's like the hottest story in the media, so of course
Right.
everybody
Right.
gonna jump on it. So, um, speaking of which, I don't know if you remember hearing about a a broadcaster or journalism or a journalist person who's on the sideline reporter that says
Mhm.
she was a fake news. She'd been faking all the stuff.
Carissa
And
Thompson. Yep. Hmm.
yes. So, with what she has stated and everything, how has it affected now for real female journalism to now be taken seriously now, to having to just speak about their reputation, having everything.
Yeah. When I first heard that, I'm a fan of Carissa Thompson. I love, the work she's done. Like, she was a sideline reporter, and then turned into a broadcaster who is on two major networks. She's on Amazon, and she's on NFL on Fox. So she's the host of two of their pregame, postgame. So she's come a long way. And on top of it, she has her own podcast, which is very popular with Aaron Andrews. So I remember watching Carissa Thompson when she was on ESPN and then on Fox. So I was a big fan. But then to hear about the comments she made about, uh, you know, lying about her reports, as she said, now she tried to backtrack, that she did it a long time ago, or she never did it. But she talked about this. She talked about this for a couple of years ago. But I guess she got more in depth on a podcast, and kind of just was sitting back, conversating, and then got real loose with it. But it was a bad look. It was a very bad look, because even as she said on her apology, she said words matter. Yeah. So words do matter. So the words you just said matter. So a lot of her colleagues, and other women and men, journalists and silent reporters, they were really upset because of the integrity of journalism. And I think that's what she violated, basically violated almost a code in a way of saying those things. And as you know, it's hard for women to even, when they get those positions, to be respected, and which is sad. We're still talking about that in 2023, but it's so the ones that even like some of the veterans, I did some of the names like Andrea Kramer and Lisa Salters, and
Oh yeah.
they really were like, we don't, this is not okay. This is not, and they said they were getting text and emails from young journalists who were trying to come on and say, is this okay? And Crystal Thompson she has a big voice in broadcasting, as I said, on Amazon Prime and on the NFL and Fox. So what she says matters, and young journalists are thinking this is not okay. Like they're not okay. So I'm glad some of the people did, they called her out on it and saying it's not okay. And I know she made a statement. She did a text or a tweet. I think she did a tweet or Instagram post and said, kind of apology in a way, and then kind of backtrack. But it's out there now, so it's going to be hard because now people are going to think, okay, is this person telling the truth? Is this person real? Is this a real news? All the ones that are doing that, the real work and not faking it or not lying about it, it hurts them. It hurts them because of this. And it's almost like she was privileged, to say
Mm-hmm.
these things. It's like, yeah, you made it to where you are. People look up to you. You got to be careful how you say and what you say. And I just hope that she's learned from that. And now that she got that backlash, hopefully she just kind of say, okay, let me, because that can, if somebody else would have said it, like, I don't know, different, Jamel Hill or something like that, they would have got really like dogged at it. So, Crystal Thompson, I just hope that she's learned, and it could be a learning experience for her, and then they can move forward, and really she can learn from those words she said.
I feel like, you made a point, like, say if I feel like if Jamel Hill or Lisa Salters did something like that, they would get
Right.
more crucified because, I mean, as you said, Carissa Top, privileged.
Mhm.
They have to, Lisa and Jamel had to work probably 10 times harder, extra harder
Yeah.
because, they don't have like enough, like, say, me and Kelsey were talking about how, like, with the NFL, you will hope that more black coaches be involved, the more,
Yeah.
and for Lisa Salters, Jamel Hill, say if they did something like that, oh, they would just, like, you wouldn't hear nothing. They would be crucified like crazy.
Yeah, and then that's as they said, and I think all these Salters were saying that, and Jamel definitely said, you know, you got to work as a woman. They have to work 10 times harder, and on top of that, a black woman or a woman of color has to work even harder. So for them, there's not that many positions like that. We want there needs to be more of that just for women. But when you have women that are in those positions, no matter what their color, what their race or what their color or status is, you know, you you take that and you run with it as much as you can and try to make the best of it. But then you have someone like I said, someone like a Carissa Thompson or Ann Andrews in their position on a big platform like Fox. Yeah, it matters because people are looking up to you. And you gotta really be careful what you say. Now, if she would have just been like, because I know some of the other broadcasters were saying and the silent reporters were saying, if she couldn't get anything from the team, even if it's something like they didn't talk, like if they're talking to a coach at halftime and they're not giving them anything, you don't make it up. You kind of just, okay, let me piece together something that I prepared for this, because they might not give you that. They're frustrated. They might be down big, down, and they don't want to give you anything, but you still want to make sure you got about 30 seconds to a minute to do a report. But
Right.
just be authentic and real, because now another thing of trust. That's another thing
Oh
with it.
yeah.
Now players and coaches and GMs and things like that might not even trust some of these sideline reporters, and that hurts now because of what's this is out there. They work so hard to build trust, to build that rapport with with the coaches and players. That's why sometimes the players don't want to talk to the media. They don't want to reveal much of anything because they want that trust. But you do have those respected journalists who have built their trust and really have that resume to report the truth. So, like I said, I hope Krista Thompson is, like I said, it could be a learning thing, and I don't want to dump on her and everything.
Right.
She did get dragged. She got dragged a lot, and people really got on her, all the comments and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, let's try to work through it, and now she's hopefully she's learned from it, and I don't know if she's addressed it since then. I know I haven't listened to their podcast. I am curious to see her and what Aaron Andrews has to say about it. She might not address it, but to say that loose and be that cavalier about it was it was very disappointing.
All I know is when it comes to like sports news, especially on the social media, Twitter, they are the judge,
They're gonna get
jury.
you, yes.
Like they will drag you to the
Hmm.
pits and you
Yeah.
like, I don't know how am I gonna come back. And then say if you get back to your feet, they'll bring up the receipts. This you? Like
Yep.
this was
Yeah.
you?
Yes. Fair, unfair. They people are on it. Like they are on social media. They're on the game. That's a good and a bad with social media. They can really they'll call you out if you say something and it's not true. Even if you're doing like predictions and picks, and I've had that. I've done wrong picks and things like that before, wrong predictions, and they'll say you said that, and I did this, I picked this. I'm like, hey, look, I'm sorry. This is what with my research, this is what I thought, and it's how I felt. And you can't help it when some of the outcomes. I'm sorry that you invested in that much. I'm glad you did, but but they'll call you out fairly or unfairly.
So my question is how did you get into, the women's sports aspect and what influenced you to continue in that route?
I gotta like growing up, being raised by my mother and grandmother. That's where it started. Just to have that respect first and foremost, and that's where it starts. And then my wife and cousins, things like that. But just the respect of women first and foremost. That's I think that's the main thing from that. And I've always been a fan of women's sports. I just like sports and I like competitions, and when it comes to women's sports, just the competition of it, just watching from I would go from the WNBA when it first started, 20. I think they're going into their 28th season now. So I remember watching that college basketball, women's college basketball, watching that, and from
Oh
high
yeah.
school, way back when, and just been a fan of that. I'm a fan of women's tennis, with Serena and Venus, and now Coco Golf and Naomi Osaka. Then I could go on and on with those names, and just in general, I'm just a big, huge fan, big advocate because not just for the men's sports in general. I just like I said, I just love sports. So whether it's men or women, I'm going to watch. Like when it's on TV and I'm just flipping channels, I'm watching, and I'm watching. I'm taking notes. I'm just doing research and reading articles, things like that. Just the same stuff I was doing when I was 10 years old. I do today. So it's just I guess it's just in my nature to watch sports in general, whether it's men or women.
I know your younger self is probably just like, man, I actually did it.
Yeah, yes, right. Yeah, totally. Yes. It's I love it. I love the stories. I love to see, those women in sports, whatever the sport is, from like I said, Serena, Venus, Simone Biles. I love the competition. I love to see them win. And
Oh,
you have your favorites, and I just love seeing that from if we talk UConn basketball, whatever it is, from when Tennessee and UConn was the rivalries back then, way back when
yes.
when they were dominating, and even from today, from the WNBA when it started with Cheryl Swoops and Cooper and Tina Thompson and Teresa Witherspoon, Rebecca Lobo. I mean, the names, the list goes on and on, and just how it just progressed. And now women in sports is not, the ratings and the viewership and the sponsorships. It's good to see, real good to see.
How do you feel about the NIL, being implemented? Whew, I can't speak right now. Implemented. How do you feel about the NIL being implemented for college athletes now, since they're finally getting paid for their name, image, and likeness?
I've been preaching this for a long time. I've been saying college athletes need to be paid. I think there should be a stipulation because it could get out of hand. I think the NIL can get out of hand because they're paying a lot of these young athletes a lot of money, a lot of sponsorships, things like that. I think it's well deserved, but they're becoming superstar before they even finish school and things like that. But I think it's good. It's a good thing that they're getting paid. I think it's just got to be. I think it's got to be on a more watchful eye because it can get out of hand. But I've been saying that the athletes need to really be. They should have been paid because they do a lot. They do a lot. The athletes do a lot. They generate a lot of money for the schools and the universities, and coaches even get paid a lot of money too. So
Oh yeah.
why not the players be able to get some of that money because of them? And I know education comes first. Education definitely comes first. It's the most
Yes.
important. But if it's student athletes, if it could not just from basketball, I'm talking from swimming to all the sports. I just feel like the student athletes should get some type of payment. And I'm glad that the NIL is part of that progress. Part of that process is just has to me. It's getting a little out of hand now because so many people are getting paid. So many athletes don't want to. They just want to do that. They just want to become famous so quickly. But you got to put in that
Hmm.
work. Got to put in that work. So you put in that work, you get you reap the benefits of the reward. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good for the for the NIL is paying a lot of these athletes.
Oh yeah. So, what's crazy? A lot of people don't know this, but do you remember UCLA's Ed O'Bannon back in the
Yeah.
day?
Yes.
So he brought up, I remember I read his book, Court Justice, is really good. And he
Hmm.
brought up how, like, his picture was used on one of the video games. And
Yeah.
he didn't know it. He didn't know that they thought,
Hmm.
oh, he's going to get paid, but he wasn't getting paid. He didn't know it. It's like, why am I not getting paid?
Yeah.
So the fact that he brought this issue to the forefront, and not a lot of people know this because he was the one that brought the issue of name,
Yeah.
image, and likeness to now where it is right now. Now that the laws have been, um, accepted to where now college athletics, athletes can finally get paid for who they are now.
Yeah, right, right. And yes, when you're in a video game, I remember some players, they were back way back, they were talking to the athletes, they were talking about they just wanted to autographs, they would sign autographs and they couldn't get paid from that, jersey sales, things like that. Like they should have got some type of percentage, I really believe, of some of those, those payments because the colleges they were getting paid, those universities was getting a lot of money
Mhm.
and the players are not getting anything. They're like, well, yes, you have a scholarship, and yes, that's the best thing. But they're like, we're doing all these other things. We're generating money for you. We should get. I was always saying, get a stipend, something
Yes.
back then. Some type of small percentage of what they could get, like. Because that's why boosters they were coming in. Now there were some snakes out there that was trying
Oh,
to
yes.
get paid off of the athletes, but they were trying to, help at the time they were trying to help the athletes. Then I'm talking about some of the not the bad ones, but some of the like good ones are they had their interest, the best interest. But there's so much money. That's why it's hard to like I said with NIL. That's the some of the bad of it. Like there could be some of those bad apples that are just want to just we want to just throw all this money out. Okay, but what do they actually have to do? That's where I think that there needs to be a line that needs to be drawn where it's legitimate. And NIL is doing the best they can do. But as you said, when Ed O'Bannon said when he did that, he's like, I didn't get paid off none of that, none of the video
Right.
game sales or anything. But they're using my name. I should get something out of that. Like, how am I not benefiting I'm not getting the benefits of that. So it's good that I was so happy that college athletes are getting something from, from the NIL or you said sponsorships or anything like that. So I think it just needs to continue to keep growing.
What would you say? Which athletes do you feel like, if the NIL had been implemented way before this year, which
Mhm.
like athlete you think would have benefited during their college years?
Ooh, so
Female
many.
athletes.
Female, man, so many. I mean, you could even go back to like when Dinah Taurasi and when Maya Moore was playing, even before them, before all them. I can only imagine, like, because during those times, you had the Candace Parkers, you had the Shamika Holslaw, and you had all those star athletes. I mean, Dinah Taurasi. I'll just take Dinah Taurasi for instance, who was winning so much when she was at UConn. She would have
Mhm.
been like, I mean, already they was putting her out there as like, oh, she's the female Kobe. Like they was calling her, the Mamba mentality of that,
Mhm.
So she could have really, you know, I could even go before then, but I'll start getting with her at that time, you name an athlete that they could have really benefited from from NIL.
Oh
But Diana
yeah.
Taurasi could have really benefited from something like the NIL.
Oh yeah. I agree with Maya Moore too. I love Maya Moore.
Yeah,
That's my
Maya Moore.
goat.
Yeah,
That's
Maya
my
Moore
goat.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
I would say to Skylar Diggins because
God
during her
Diggins.
Notre
Yes.
Dame,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
every I remember hearing every girl wanted to have it like the headband like her, like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
headband she always even celebrities were trying to find her jersey, like Lil Wayne was trying to find her jersey and Drake
Yeah.
was trying to find her jersey and wear it. So it's like the popularity that she was getting when she was still playing
Oh
was
yeah.
out of this world.
I mean, yeah, you could go Brianna Stewart. I mean, the success Brianna Stewart had in college, 4 years in a row, winning 4 championships, like that. I mean, like you
And
said,
player of
the
the year
and
too.
player of the year and was dominant and all those. I mean, you go from Sue Bird. I mean, you can list so many, and you can even go. If you want to really like you could go with Cheryl Miller from back when she was playing back in the day. Like that female. If you talk about just basketball, you can start from there. And like, yeah, there's so many. Like whoever was the name at that time, at that time they all of them, from not even just from basketball, from uh, volleyball and, and all the sports, track and field, all the women from there could have benefited from NIL and really got paid from there. But it kind of too, in a way, from back then, you know, they played and they did it for, because they had the passion. I'm not saying that these athletes don't have the passion to play today, but back then they weren't playing for the money in the NIL. They didn't have any of all that access. They were playing because they wanted to, make it to, well, at that time there was no WNBA 20
Right.
something years ago, but they were playing for college nationally, said national player of the year and college, you know, college championships and things like that. They were playing for that, Final Fours and all that. So uh maybe it was good that they didn't get it and they have it now.
Oh yeah. How does it with speaking of the WNBA, to see that, Golden State is gonna do have a WNBA
Yeah.
team now finally, and that's a marketing city too.
Hmm.
Um, do you hope to see the WNBA finally expanding now since the arrival of the Golden State introducing a WNBA team in 2025?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I know we talked about this a couple times on podcasts where we were saying there's so much talent. I mean, there's so much talent in for college basketball heading into the WNBA, athletes going into WNBA. And then there's so many players are they're getting cut. They're getting, I mean, good players, really good players, top 10 picks and things like that. They're getting cut because there's not enough rooms, not enough roster spots. So the W had to do something. They had to like get another team, get a couple teams. There's supposed to be another team coming in 2025. They don't know the city yet. I guess Portland's been. They talked about Portland. They talked about I think Toronto. There's other cities and states that are trying to get a WNBA team. So yeah, expansion was I think was the key because they said there's so much talent coming into the league, and you want to see the best talent playing somewhere. And like I said, there's only so many roster spots. There's 12 teams, 12 players on each team, 144 spots, and
Oh
you've
yeah.
got you got some of the top elite players that are making it. But like I said, you have top 20 picks that are some of them are not even making it, and they got to find other ways to try to make money or continue to try for the WNBA. But yeah, I think expansion is great. I think San Francisco, Oakland is a really good spot because you said of the Golden State Warriors, and now you're going to have a team there. I think it just expands the WNBA even more.
Exactly, because the WNBA did have host a game in Toronto, and that
Yeah,
sold out like crazy.
huge. Yeah,
And that's another city that's really marketable because you have the Raptors, and they have other major league like teams, like a hockey team and
hmm
a baseball team.
baseball.
So,
Yep.
and then I'm hoping Charlotte gets it again. I want a Charlotte
Yeah.
Sting again.
Yeah.
And then Portland used to have a WNBA team. I just found that out.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's so many. I feel like there's also so many cities that are considered big too that do not even have a major league team that would be a first for them. So people that also with Toronto, there are players in colleges that are from Canada that would
Yes.
love to have a team that they can play that's near their family, and I think Toronto would be great too for that.
Yes, and Toronto, as you said, that when they had a game there this season, and it was like the ratings and it was sold out, and it's like this is what it can be look like, Even here where I live in Philly, Philadelphia doesn't have a WNBA team, and that would be great. I remember Dawn Staley talked about that. Like she's from Philly, and she said herself, like, we should have a team here. Like, why we don't have a team here? Yes, there's so many cities, and as I said, the WNBA continues to keep growing, continues to keep, and then I know their deals getting ready that's coming up soon. So it's gonna be more money, more generate more money. They got the viewership this past season
Oh
was
yeah.
really good. There's so many good storylines. You said that the expansion now, and the Aces and the Liberty and that rivalry, if you want to call it that, and the super team being built the way the Liberty was trying to do it, but then the Aces were saying this is how we've done it, and this is where we're back to back champions. And but yeah, the WNBA got so many, and then the TV deals they're trying to get they're on more networks. Ion had games, and
Amazon
uh,
Prime.
Amazon Prime, yeah, Amazon Prime. So streaming, and the numbers were through the roof for the W. So it was yeah, I feel like expansion is necessary, was needed, and I think it's good for the league.
Oh yeah. And I was actually happy that the Aces won because
Mm,
I just wanted to see Candace Parker win her third ring, even though people are like, well, she didn't really play much. She was still part of the team, still coaching. People
yes.
like actually listen to her. She has
hmm
2 rings already from 2 different teams.
Yeah.
So, and she's a veteran. So,
Yeah.
they're going to listen to her. She knows what she's saying and doing. So,
Yes.
and the fact that Asia Wilson told folks like y'all made a mistake in not voting for me for
Yeah.
MVP, and whoever voted for her in 4th place was, I just want to know, 4th
Who
or
did
3rd
that?
place. I just want to know who did it.
Yep.
Show
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Show yourself. Right. Don't be anonymous. Just show yourself because you know Asia Wilson, the year she had, like I'm not gonna say because Brianna Stewart did her thing,
Right.
coming from Seattle, going to the Liberty, becoming that basically the face of that franchise, and leading that team to the WNBA finals. Had a tremendous year. Asia Wilson just proved to everyone again, like she's the best player in the league. She's the best player in WNBA. And it's she just said, okay, I'm going to just show you why I'm the best defensive player and the best player and the MVP. So she was the MVP of the finals, and the Aces just they were just so good. And I give the Liberty props too because I was rooting for the Liberty in itself too because for them to put that team together, it just I think it just needs to take some time before but to get to the WNBA finals, just building that team, bringing all those that team together, what they've done with all those names and things like that. It took some time to gel, but they got there. So next season is gonna be really crazy. This was a crazy season. Next year's gonna be real crazy. But I mean, big shout out to the Vegas Aces. Deservedly so. They had injuries. They dealt with so much controversy and everything, and they still
Oh
got through.
yeah.
They still got through and won the whole thing. And they were dominant all year. So it's no surprise they went back to back with Kelsey Plum. And I mean, it was just a tremendous. They had a tremendous year, and so big shout out to the Vegas Aces.
Also, Alyssa Thomas was
Alyssa Thomas,
crazy
yes,
good.
hmm
Like she had a season that nobody's probably gonna ever see again with like a
probably
lot of
not.
triple doubles
Yeah,
just at her age too. And she, it's amazing to see her and her fiance on the same team together. That's
hmm
interesting. But her to do triple doubles, averaging like it is like a walk in the park, that
right.
was like unheard of and unseen before. So
Yeah, you haven't seen that too much, not in the WNBA. And Alyssa Thomas she had a dominant year too. I mean, there was so many good like storylines of this past season. I was really all in. Like this was one of the better seasons I've seen. I've seen just about every WNBA season, like really watching it, and now, as you said, doing some coverage of it, some media stuff with it. Just seeing that was it was just good to see. And then, like I said, the ratings and viewership was through the roof.
and then Aaliyah Boston was unanimous rookie of the year
Yes.
as she should because she
hmm
had a season that was just like her preceders. Like she became like either the fourth or fifth
Yeah, fifth
unanimous,
one. Yeah.
just like Tamika Catchings, just like Asia Wilson, just like to
Yeah.
see her, and she became the second Indiana Fever to win Rookie of the Year along with Tamika
Tamika
Catchings.
Catching. Yeah. Yeah. And I had a chance to interview her when she was presented. Well, she got the award, and they had the media come in, ask her a couple of questions, and I was able to just ask her what it felt like to be, unanimous, one of five players to ever, as the unanimous rookie of the year. And she was just like with that company, and she was like, just to be a part of that was, I read the name, she was like, wow, just to be she said, just to be a fly on the wall, just to talk with them. She said, just to pick their brain and of future Hall of Famers and all-star players like that. Candace Parker was one of them. Like that's a future Hall of Famer. It's one of the greatest players of all time. Candace Parker, love Candace Parker. But
Yes.
Leah Boston, she said, I told her, I was like, you belong. Like you are that good. And now, you had your rookie year. You got a taste of what the WNBA is, about. She's only going to get better. And they got a top pick. I think they got the top pick of this season, of this year's draft, of this next season's draft. Caitlin Clark comes out. You know, it, and man, the W man, they're in a good spot, like for real.
And then this year's NCAA women's basketball is
Mm,
like already the upsets are crazy. Like
yeah,
the LSU losing to Colorado, no one expected that. And
yeah,
then Iowa losing to Kansas State, that was just
yeah,
unexpected. So, and they have a class that could be going in the draft, but also some people may stay for an extra year
yeah.
because of
hmm
COVID. So, um, you have Cameron Brink from Stanford, you have Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and already people are talking crazy about, the Angel Reese situation that we
Yeah,
don't really know about, honestly. I
no,
feel like with the assumptions, like Angel Reese even tweeted, don't believe everything you see or hear
yeah,
because why are you like broadcasting something that has nothing to do with me or making assumptions? Do you feel like that sometimes, like when it comes to journalism, that is the negative aspect of it?
Yeah, that definitely a negative aspect of it, because when you make up the stories we were just talking about earlier,
Hmm.
that some journalists do, but that I think that's the bad side of it because you don't have all the facts. Like you learn that in journalism. Like, I've taken journalism classes. I've taken media classes in college, and journalism. I took journalism 101, and that was one of the things. Like you don't make up things. Like you have to get the facts. You want to be taken seriously ethics wise, you don't want to make up things. Like I said, you're not gonna the players and people you interview are not gonna trust you if you're not a reliable source of and that's why it's hard for media to get anything out of these athletes. And the Angel Reese story, it's snowballed quickly because of a lot of different assumptions. Like I said, we don't know all the facts of what's really going on. Some people said she's gotten to, like, she's not putting in the work anymore. She's gotten too big, the NIL money, because she's making a lot of money, and
Hmm.
and uh clashing with the coach, and people said her grades are low. Like we don't even know what's going on. It could be something she might not even. It could be something mental. We don't know. She could be going through something a mental, or anything. It could be anything. I'm not even going to assume. It's just it's sad on that part where people think, oh, she has a lower than 2.0. How do you know? Unless she said it herself or her teammate said it or something like that. Uh, we don't know what the real story is. I hope everything is okay with her mentally and physically, and that she's ready to get back on the court. Because she's super talented player,
Hmm.
and I mean, she was player of the year, player of the finals last year, and that LSU Iowa. We talked about the ratings of that game, the viewership,
9.9 million.
9 million. Yes, 9.9 million on ABC, on ESPN, but it was on ABC, and that was just that elevated women in sports for viewership wise, and but yeah, I hope Angel Reese can get back to playing basketball, and even if she is going through something, like she's a very young athlete that has some money. Yes, maybe it's one of those things like she celebrated. She won a national championship. She became a national all-star.
Yes.
So people were loving her. People love her. And sometimes that fame might get to them, might get to their head and blow their heads up. But we don't even know if that's the case. So I just like I said, I hope she gets back on the court and really grind this out and just play ball and get back on there. But yeah, I hope the best for her. Wish the best for her.
And what's crazy is the viewership for the NCAA women's was even higher than this year's World Series.
Yeah,
Like this year's
yeah,
World Series was
mhm.
9.1, and then the NCAA this past season was 9.9. So it's like women in sports is talking. I mean, we
Yeah,
got something to show. And
yeah.
then Nebraska's volleyball
Oh my
game,
goodness, yeah.
it was so many to the point it was a Guinness World Record. And
Yeah.
then Iowa had, used their football. Iowa women's basketball had a football field, used the football field for their court, and it sold out.
Sold out
So
quickly. Yeah, like we said, I know we talked about it at length about networks and TV, TV networks and people that these big companies, if they invest, it will grow. The women's sport will keep growing. They gotta pay. You gotta spend dollars because the viewership is there. People want to just see competition. People want to see the stories of these athletes. And at this and in this time when college is women's college basketball, whether it's tennis, whether the stories of these athletes are what is driving this too is. And there's so many stars out there now that it's people want to like say, like we said with the WNBA we talked about, there's so many different stars that people are interested in and their stories, and they just want to see them play basketball. They want to see them, tennis, golf, whatever it is, track and field, women's track and field. has grown too with the viewership. So yeah, when networks invest and they really get in, these companies invest, whether it's Nike and Under Armour, when they invest in these athletes and these teams, uh, they, the viewership's going to be high.
And it's also too another thing that's what I really love that the WNBA players get to do off season. Candace Parker on the NBA on TNT as a
Mm-hmm.
analyst, and then you have I can never say her last name. Starts with a O. Chini
Oh,
Okur.
Akawambi, yes, yes,
Yes, for
mm-hmm.
her to be on the NBA on
Yeah,
ESPN, that, and then now Leah Boston is now analyst on like one of the college
yeah,
um
yeah.
stations. So
Mm-hmm.
that's you know, people would love to see more of the WNBA players to present their point of view, whether it's for men's and women's basketball. So
Yeah,
that's
Chennai and like you said Candace Parker, what they do. Candace Parker, she does like she does the you said the NBA and is really good. She's an analyst. She's a studio host, and she does like she's knows the niche like that. And Chennai also Agumake, she does so much with Lisa with the NBA and everything too. So I love seeing that where they can do media and they still are athletes and they cross over and do real good work. Because even Candace Parker she is really good. Like she does so much. Like that's she takes that craft seriously. And Chene Ogumake does the same thing. They take it seriously. And they are really good analysts and really good at media. And yeah, I love seeing that too. And that's what makes even their brand grow even more too.
oh yeah. That would be so cool to have Candace Parker be on here too. That's
Hmm.
another goal right there.
Yeah, that's right. Shoot that shot just to get her, pick her brain for half an hour. Like, and I know they don't have they're they do a lot of things, and I mean Lisa Leslie has transitioned into that. I mean, there's so many that done it. I mean Cheryl Miller, she was a sideline, she was a sideline host
Oh
for
yes.
NBA. I know Cheryl Swoops has done some media stuff. I mean, the list. There's so many. Um, Monica McNutt now, like she played college ball, and now I love seeing her on ESPN and doing coverage for women's college
Andrea
basketball.
Carter, who played at
Yes,
Tennessee.
yes, yes, yes. So I mean, she did some draft stuff. Yeah, it's there's a lot of great talent out there.
Awesome. Man, look, hey, as Kelsey Trainer says, invest in women, pay women, hire women, great things
Hmm.
happens.
Yep, that's it. That's it. You can't say no more than that.
Real man. I I have to ask this because I was supposed to ask someone the other day, but I always ask my women, my peoples, but this is your version today. What
Okay.
makes you What makes you, as bona fide means certified, but I'm gonna ask you, what makes you certify and stand out from everyone else, and especially your story? And what advice would you tell the younger generation that wants to follow in your shoes?
What makes it like a bona fide or different or anything like that? I would say I just love to hear, as I said before, I love to hear the stories of whoever I'm interviewing, and I know what I try to what I try to do with my interview conversations is give them that platform, and I want to be. I've tried to be the best interviewer. That's what I want. I want to get questions where the whoever I'm interviewing, like they've never been asked that before. And I know that's hard because that's hard to do, but that's what I try to be different. And I ask them about their journey and ask them about what they like to do outside of their profession, and I try to do that. So because we can always hear they talk about, oh, you scored this many points or you did this many shots or this and this, and they talk about the game, which I love to hear that, but I want to hear about their personal journey, their personal story. So I think that's what I try to stand out to be different when it comes to my podcast and what I do with my questions, because I really do take this serious of of trying to really elevate the podcast and elevate my brand, but to also um give them that platform and just want them to come back and say, God, I really enjoy being on the Real Deal podcast. That's the best. That's the best feeling to have when the guest is comfortable and willing to talk and really to discuss. Because I'm not there to bash. I'm not here to. I don't want to do that. There's
Right.
you got people doing that and everything too. But I just want them to have a good time and really enjoy and then want to come back. So I think that's what makes me try to be different. For advice, I always say if you want to do any of this, whether it's sports journalism, whether it's sports business, yeah, or if you're whatever you wanted to do with podcasting, broadcasting, or anything like that, I say just do it. Just go out there and do it because nowadays you can go out and do a podcast. If you have a laptop, a cell phone, mostly everybody has a cell phone. I can say everybody because mostly everybody has a cell phone, and a lot of people have social media. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you like to do, whether it's sports, whether it's politics, whether it's business, whether it's any genre that you like to do or you like to talk about, just get onto a platform. You can record yourself for a couple of minutes. If you have an opinion about something, record it and put it out there. And I say always be, uh, I guess I wouldn't say relevant, but just always be present when you are doing these things. And then you build connection, you're just out there. And if you just want to try different things, I say try it, just do it, because like I said, there's a lot of different avenues where you can actually start your own podcast and you don't have to do an hour long podcast. You don't have to do 2 hour. You can do a 5 minute podcast. If you have something to say, then say it and just back it up with facts. So I think that would be my advice. Just go out there, do it. You don't have to have the fancy equipment. You don't have to have none of that. You can just have your cell phone, a platform, and go out there and really invest and really invest in it. And then you build an audience, you build a viewerships and all those things. And then now you can get your laptop, get your microphones, get all those things. But I just say just go out there and really just try it.
Facts, facts, facts. Let them know.
Yes. Thanks.
Yes. Before you go, can you let the followers and the viewers know where they can find you or follow you and support you?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, the Real Deal with Courtney Harden. You can find that on all podcast platforms. Spotify, Google, Apple, Spreaker. I'm on there. I'm on all those audio uh, platforms, and then social media. Get the Real Deal. I'm on the Roku channel, BS3 TV, Roku. If you download the BS3 TV app, you could get all the shows on there. BS3 Network, BS3network.com as well. I'm all over. So yeah, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I always say if you Google Courtney Harden or the Real Deal Courtney Harden, you get all the shows, all the interviews. You can follow me on all those platforms, like I said, social media and podcast platforms.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney, for coming on my podcast. Thank you so much for your insights. I truly appreciate it. Appreciate
I
it.
I appreciate you and whatever. Keep doing what you're doing. I know we talk off air a lot, and we discuss like different things of the platforms and all that. So I'm just glad to be a part of this, a part of your growth as well. So I love what you're doing. I appreciate the invite. Appreciate being the first male on the Bonafide Her podcast. So
Yes.
I love it. I love what you're doing. I love the interviews you've had even before this and with the podcast. I'm glad you launched it and continue success and everything of what and blessings of all what you're doing as well. So I appreciate it. Appreciate the time.
Of course. Thank you for guys for tuning in. Bonafide Her Podcast, episode 5, featuring Courtney Harden. We catch you guys